When we write out the equation for photosynthesis, it looks pretty simple. We take the carbon dioxide and water, add light, and then we end up with glucose and oxygen. But this process, it doesn't happen just in one step. It actually takes several steps to get from the reactants, the carbon dioxide and the water, to the products, the glucose and the oxygen. Photosynthesis actually involves two sets of reactions: light-independent reactions and light-independent reactions. What happens to the ATP and NADPH produced in the light-dependent reactions? Well, we see, okay, remember those are created in the thylakoid. When light enters the thylakoid membrane, it's absorbed by chlorophyll, and then we take that light energy and turn NADP plus into NADPH. That's an electron carrier. Both the we're going to see pretty soon how we also create ATP in that process in the light dependent reaction. Remember, ATP is the energy source. That's the charged battery that cells are going to use to do all of the things that cells need to do. So ATP is very important, and NADPH is also quite important because it's carrying high energy electrons. So in the light dependent reaction, we produce NADPH and ATP. Both of those are used to produce high energy sugars in the light independent reaction. Let's look at the light-dependent reactions a little bit more closely. We'll look at them even more closely later on. The light-dependent reactions, they use that energy from sunlight to produce energy-rich compounds such as ATP. Again, ATP is the molecule that cells use to produce, to go through all of life's functions. Think of ATP as that charged battery that cells use. The fully charged battery, ATP is made from ADP when a third phosphate group is added to that ADP, which already contains two phosphate groups. ATP is significantly higher energy than ADP, so ATP is the fully charged battery, ADP is the partially charged battery. When those light-independent reactions use energy from sunlight to produce energy-rich compounds, such as ATP, those reactions take place within the thylakoids, specifically within the thylakoid membranes, these outer layers of the thylakoids. And remember, the thylakoids are in stacks called grana. And the thylakoids stacked in the grana are in a fluid substance called stroma. Water is required in these light-dependent reactions as a source of electrons and hydrogen ions. This is part of the reason why plants need a constant supply of water. Oxygen is released as a byproduct. Why is the first set of reactions called the light-dependent reactions? Because these reactions require the direct involvement of light. They can only happen while light is being absorbed by the plant, by the chlorophyll. So light-independent reactions can only occur when light is shining on the plant. There are another set of reactions called light-independent reactions. Remember that plants absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Plants complete the process of photosynthesis by producing carbon-containing sugars and other carbohydrates. This occurs in the light-independent reactions. So carbon dioxide is absorbed, sugars and other carbohydrates are produced. These are high energy molecules. No light is required to power the light independent reactions. They don't have to take place in the dark. They take place all the time, but they don't require the immediate presence of light. So light independent reactions take place outside the thylakoids in the stroma. Remember, the stroma is the fluid that fills the chloroplast. The two sets of reactions work together to capture the energy of sunlight and transform it into energy-rich compounds such as carbohydrates. The light-dependent reactions, remember this, the light-dependent reactions capture the energy of sunlight and transfer that energy into electron carriers. Those electron carriers carry those high-energy electrons to fuel the light-independent reactions. And in the light-independent reactions, the plants will take in carbon dioxide and produce sugars. What compounds are recycled then between these reactions? Well, look at the diagram. We have NADPH, which is formed from NADP plus in the light-dependent reactions, and then in the light-independent reactions, it turns back into NADP plus. And then again, we add that hydrogen ion and high-energy electrons back to it. It becomes NADPH and carries that energy back to the light-independent reaction. So we have a cycle here. We have a cycle between NADPH and NADP plus. Also, we have a cycle between ATP and ADP. The ADP gains energy and a phosphate group in the light-dependent reactions, becomes ATP, and then that carries energy to the light-independent reactions where that phosphate group is removed and the ATP turns back into ADP. The energy is released to power the light-independent reaction. So what would happen if an inhibitor of the light-independent reaction was added to chloroplasts? Well, the light-dependent reaction would also be inhibited. If we shut off the light-independent reactions, then even the light-dependent reactions would be stopped because these ATP and NADPH molecules would not be turned back into ADP and NADP+. So if you shut off one of these sets of reactions, the other is also going to suffer. It's going to be shut off.